The economy is in bad shape and everything is getting more expensive. But what if we told you cars are about to experience a massive price reduction in the coming months? Sounds too crazy to be true, right? Well, stay with us in this video to find out all the facts. Depending on where you are regarding buying a new car, the news of car prices dropping can either make you excited or piss you off. If you just committed a considerable chunk of your income or savings to buy a car anytime this year, you'll feel hard done by having spent so much when you could have been patient and gotten one for less. But if you're only just planning to get a car, then this is just the news you wanted to hear. Now, the truth is, this reduction in car prices began earlier in the year 2024, but many people never noticed it because they're not aware of what the numbers used to be like a few years ago. Like virtually every other commodity and service in the world, the global pandemic in 2020 saw the prices of used cars skyrocket to all-time high values. Back in late 2019, before the pandemic, the average used car selling price in the US was $20,618. The number shot up considerably during the pandemic, and rather than reduce in the months following the lockdown, the prices kept on rising so high that by October 2022 there had been a comprehensive 40% price increase in the average selling price of used cars in the US. This ridiculous price increase occurred primarily due to the basic law of supply and demand. During the pandemic and the months following it, many Americans had to cut back on their spending because of food prices and other lifestyle changes induced by being indoors for almost a year. This meant car buyers also had to cut back, hence fewer people were in the new car market and more were looking to buy used cars. The extremely low interest rates on car loans during that period also increased the population of Americans looking to buy a used car. And just as the demand increased, the supply of used cars was on a slippery slope during and immediately after the pandemic period. That was pretty expected considering car factories couldn't work or produce new cars for the period of the lockdown. So when the demand for new cars increased and car dealerships opted to increase prices to reflect the high demand, it made it easier for the average American to opt for a used car. All these factors resulted in used cars getting a lot more expensive than they used to be, and by late 2022, the average cost of a used car was over $30,000. Today, just 2 years later, that price is down to about $25,000, which is still a long way from the average used car selling price in 2019, but is definitely a considerable drop within just 2 years, and that price drop isn't stopping anytime soon. Now, certain car brands have specific reasons why their prices will be dropping in the next few months. Take Toyota, for example. One of their top hybrid vehicles, the 23 and 24 Toyota Corolla hybrids, are about to experience massive price drops as 2024 comes to an end and also in the earlier months of the new year. This is because there is a 2025 version of these hybrid vehicles about to be launched, which is expected to have more advanced features. At the same time, there is still a sizable market for the older models because they are tested and trusted by customers because of their consistency and affordability. And when the 2025 model is launched at a slightly higher selling price, some customers will be keen to upgrade, which means the older models are bound to get way cheaper whether you're buying them new or used. For the Hyundai brand, cars like the 2023 Ioniq are going to get way cheaper because of the impending release of the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq, which is way more advanced, sophisticated, and techy than the older model. While for brands like Mazda, which are known for producing fuel-efficient vehicles, they'll be forced to reduce the price of cars because of the impending rise in oil prices in coming months. You might want to be on the lookout for cars like the 2024 Mazda CX-90, which ranks above much of the competition when it comes to fuel economy. And electric vehicles don't escape this reduction in car prices. After all, for the past few years, the supply of EVs has honestly been way more than the demand. It might be hard to believe, but that's what the statistics of EVs in the United States suggest, and as a result, brands like Tesla have their prices on a downward trend to get more potential customers. But despite the existence of factors that specifically affect certain car brands and result in those brands getting cheaper, there are also the more general factors that virtually every automotive manufacturer and dealership is affected by, one of which is the period of the year. If you haven't noticed this in previous years, then you should from now on. The final quarter of every year always sees car prices drop to their cheapest, particularly throughout October and November. First, there is the fact that brands have to do specials and discount sales over Labor Day, Veterans Day, and other holiday weekends. Although this can be seen as just good salesmanship and business promotion, we should say. But then there's the more intentional aspect of these price drops, where brands are forced to reduce prices because they need to make room for new models. Fall and winter are the most common reasons for this to start, as many car brands need room in their stock to put out the newer models of the cars about to be launched in the new year. Sure, not all the new models are significantly upgraded, but the car dealers still need to put on an image of development and innovation to interest customers. The only way to do that is by price reduction of older models. And what's more, October 2024 marked the second consecutive month of a 90,000 unit increase in the car market. Such an increase inevitably points to a possible shift in the supply-demand dynamics of the automotive market. You see, by the end of that month, there had been a significant 2.9% increase in new vehicle inventory. While this number had seen similar hikes in previous months, the increase in October took the total to 3.14 million units on dealer lots. That expansion in the inventory of most automobile manufacturers and dealerships is another reason why vehicle pricing is set to experience a shift in coming months. Expanded inventory always results in a reduction of prices for any product or commodity, and for cars, the inventory expansion in late 2024 brought about a reduction of more than $300 on average for the selling prices of cars in the United States. Don't get it twisted though, these price drops began as far back as February 2024. In fact, October's price reduction continued a trend of 8 consecutive months of growing incentives and discounts from car manufacturers in America. Now, clearly, inventory expansion leads to a reduction in the manufacturer's suggested retail price, but here's the best part. Although inventory expansions directly affect only the manufacturers and factories, a reduction in the price of brand new vehicles has a more obvious ripple effect on the price of used cars. It might be hard for you to understand the details behind this, but in October 2024, used vehicle prices saw a decline of more than $1,000 compared to the average cost of these cars in August, just 2 months prior. Speaking about this, Jeff Englishman, the vice president of dealer success at Zero Sum, explained in a recent interview, "Over the course of the long inventory recovery period, vehicle counts have remained lower than they were prior to the pandemic. While we're still not back to an oversupply situation, the recent acceleration of growth points to the potential of that recurrence." He later added, "We aren't seeing significant shifts in sales velocity yet, but dealers should be aware of these big-picture market dynamics when pricing and supporting their inventory positions." Such a statement coming from a respectable expert in the field of car inventory and sales indicates there's a chance in the car market for price-savvy customers to pick up really good deals on their favorite vehicles. We do have to point out, however, that it's not all good news for used cars though. There's the not-so-little problem of the high interest rates which continue to keep buyers away. For specifics, right now the average used car loan rate is north of 14% APR, while a number of new car manufacturers are offering incentives like 0% APR. At first, it might sound like getting a used car for cheaper with a 14% interest rate isn't so bad. After all, their prices are dropping compared to brand new cars. But this quick analogy explains it better. If you purchased a used car for about $25,000 at 13% APR, you'd end up spending some thousands of dollars more than you'd have spent if you bought a brand new car for $30,000 at 0% APR. So clearly the used car market isn't yet the best solution possible unless you're looking to make a full payment purchase. And so while the details of sales and car marketing might be a bit more difficult to understand, the most basic reason for the reduction in the prices of used cars is clearly the decline in demand. The increase in inventory of new cars and reduced interest rates incentives all point to the fact that fewer people are interested in buying used cars. Rolling it back a few years ago during the pandemic, people needed to avoid public transportation to limit the spread of the coronavirus, and used vehicles were the most economical solution. As we mentioned earlier, car factories were also brought to a halt, so there was a limited circulation of new models. All those factors made the idea of getting a used car more logical for the average American, but now those factors are no longer in play. If anything, Americans are being encouraged to reduce their purchases of gasoline-fueled used cars to slow down climate change, and new vehicle inventories are expanding more than ever. All these reasons make getting a new, preferably electric car, the trend in today's America. But if you're not one to follow trends and your biggest priority is to spend less, then this is the best time to go shop for a used car. Trust us, you'll be glad you did. Lastly, we should warn that the projectile of price reduction could experience a sudden twist if the rapid interest rate increases on used vehicles are removed. So if you're considering buying cheap, the earlier the better. You never know what the market could look like by tomorrow. That's all for this video on car owners will be outraged when prices drop over 30% from current levels. Will you be taking advantage of the price decline anytime soon? Let us know in the comments section and enjoy our other videos.